There are watch brands that make beautiful objects, and then there are watch brands that quietly shape the entire language of watchmaking. Jaeger LeCoultre belongs to the second kind. Deep in Switzerland's Vallée de Joux, where winter is long and silence feels almost mechanical. One house built a reputation not by shouting louder than everyone else, but by making the movements that others relied on. That is why collectors still call Jaeger LeCoultre the watchmaker of watchmakers. The Maison itself uses that identity today, alongside its reputation as Le Grande Maison, with more than 1,400 calibers and over 430 patents across its history. The story begins in 1833, when Antoine LeCoultre transformed his family's small barn in La Sentière into a watchmaking atelier. He was not simply a watchmaker, he was a toolmaker, inventor, engineer, and perfectionist. At the time, watchmaking was still fragmented. One craftsman made wheels, another made springs, another assembled the mechanism. Knowledge was divided into small secrets. Antoine imagined something different, a place where the whole watch could be conceived, developed, decorated, adjusted, and finished under one roof. This was the seed of the modern manufacture. Not a factory in the cold industrial sense, but a house of craft, discipline, and invention. Antoine understood something fundamental. Before you can make a better watch, you must first learn how to measure better. In 1844, he created the millionometer, an instrument capable of measuring to the micron, 1,000th of a millimeter. At the time, this was revolutionary for precision watchmaking. Then, in 1847, he developed a keyless winding and setting system, helping move watchmaking away from the old keywound era. These were not decorative innovations, they were foundational. They made watches smaller, more precise, more reliable, and easier to use. This is where JLS's real character begins, beauty through engineering. By 1866, Antoine and his son Élie LeCoultre brought many watchmaking skills together under one roof, creating what became the Vallée de Joux's first full-fledged manufacture. That matters. Why? Because JLC's power was never just in one model. It was in the ability to master the entire chain: design, tools, calibraries, finishing, complications, cases, and testing. By the late 19th century, the manufacturer had become one of the region's most important employers, with hundreds of workers and hundreds of calibers created. It earned the name La Grande Maison, the Great House. Not because it was loud, because everyone in watchmaking knew what was being made inside. The second name in the story arrives from France, Edmond Jaeger. In 1903, this talented man challenged Swiss manufacturers to produce ultra-thin movements of his design. Jacques-David LeCoultre, Antoine's grandson, accepted the challenge. This meeting was more than a business arrangement. It created a fusion, French elegance and Swiss technical discipline. Their collaboration eventually led to the Jaeger LeCoultre name being formally unified in 1937. And from that partnership came a principle that still defines the brand: make complex things look effortless. For much of its history, JLC was not only making watches for itself, it was supplying movements and technical expertise to some of the greatest names in Swiss horology. That is the deeper meaning of the watchmaker of watchmakers, a manufacturer respected not just by customers, but by other watchmakers. Before modern brand mythology took over, movements mattered most. And in that hidden world, beneath the dial, beneath the signature, LeCoultre was everywhere. This is why JLC occupies a special place in horology. It is both a brand and a technical foundation. Then came the icon. In 1931, the Reverso was born from a practical problem. Polo players needed a wristwatch that could survive the impact of the game. The solution was brilliant: a rectangular case that could slide and flip over, protecting the dial. The idea is often linked to businessman César Dutré, French designer and inventor René Alfred Chauvet, Edmond Jaeger, and Jacques-David LeCoultre. Together, they created one of the most recognizable watch designs ever made. But the Reverso was more than functional. It was pure Art Deco: straight lines, stepped case, elegant proportions, architectural confidence. It began as a sports watch. It became a dress watch. It became a canvas. Initials, enamel, engraving, miniature painting, second dials, complications. The Reverso proved that one case could hold endless identities, and over 90 years later, it still looks modern. That is not nostalgia. That is design discipline. If the Reverso is the brand's design icon, the Atmos is its poetic machine. The Atmos clock is powered by small changes in temperature and atmospheric pressure. It does not need a battery. It does not need daily winding. It uses the environment around it as energy. A tiny change in temperature can keep it running for days. It feels almost impossible, not perpetual motion, but close enough to feel like magic. And yet it is not magic. It is engineering made elegant. That is JLC at its best. A mechanical idea so refined that it becomes emotional. In 1929, JLC introduced the caliber 101, one of the smallest mechanical movements ever created, weighing around 1 gram in its classic form. Think about that. A mechanical movement with wheels, bridges, screws, jewels, and a balance, small enough to disappear beneath a fingertip. The caliber 101 became famous in high jewelry watches, where the movement had to be almost invisible, allowing the bracelet, diamonds, and design to come forward. It is a reminder that miniaturization is one of the hardest arts in watchmaking. Anyone can make a mechanism bigger. Only masters can make it smaller and keep it alive. In 1950, the company launched the Memovox, one of the great alarm watches of the 20th century. Its name means the voice of memory. Before smartphones, before calendar alerts, before digital reminders. That feature gave the wrist a voice. It could remind you of a meeting, a train, a parking meter, a phone call. It was mechanical usefulness with personality. Later versions became collector favorites, including diving-related alarm watches, where the sound was not just charming, it was functional. The Memovox shows another side of JLC, not only high complications, but clever, everyday invention. In the modern era, JLC continued to show range rather than relying on one famous model. The Master Control line brought restrained classical watchmaking into the contemporary age, clean dials, strong movements, and a focus on reliability. The Dumotter collection explored the idea of separating timekeeping and complication functions through dual-wing architecture. One power source for time, another for the complication, protecting precision while allowing mechanical creativity. And then there are the great high complication pieces, multi-axis tourbillons, perpetual calendars, minute repeaters, celestial displays, and hybris mechanica creations. These watches are not always simple, they are not always quiet, but they prove that JLC still sees watchmaking as a field of research, not just a luxury category. So what makes this fantastic watch brand important? It is not only the Reverso, not only the Atmos, not only the ultra-thin movements, alarm watches, tiny calibers, or grand complications. Some brands are famous for one watch. JLC is famous because, again and again, it helped watchmaking itself move forward. Not as empty marketing, as a historical truth earned at the bench. That is why the phrase, watchmaker of watchmakers, fits. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this story, follow and subscribe to Horology Guide. No shallow hype, no insider snobbery. Just real stories, remarkable mechanics, and the people behind the watches. See you in the next one.